People don't like to be sold to, but they love to buy. And they love to be led down a process which is really good for them to make an easy decision. And our job as sales, once upon a time, used to be information. Like before internet and the World Wide Web and social media came along, the salesperson had all the information about the product or the service, fell into sales. But sales was my pathway to leadership, my pathway to management. It was the best induction I could ever have, because the better you can communicate, the more effective your life will be. And sales for me is just about communication skills, because buying is just helping someone make another decision. And what I realized was you want people to sell themselves on what they want to do, not you convince them what they need to do.
Welcome to Leading to Profit. I'm your host, Kevin Bees, and I've dedicated my career to empowering business leaders like you with the leadership skills, performance psychology they need to build thriving businesses. Are you ready for immediately actionable strategies from world-class profit leaders? Let's dive in. This is Leading to Profit. Welcome to episode number 280 of Leading to Profit. Today we have Petar Lakovich. Petar has over 30 years of experience and has run multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. He's an investor and the founder of the Reverse Selling Method and the Sales Institute of Australia. His global award-winning sales coach program, Convert Club, is renowned for helping business owners and salespeople fall in love with selling and creating amazing cash flow and profits for their businesses. He's consulted over 10,000 business professionals all over the world, and is now the co-founder of the Sales Institute, the international award-winning private sales training program, Convert Club, and the Reverse Selling Method. But hey, welcome to the show today.
Right, thanks for having me.
Now, I've known about you for quite a long while. I was just saying to you before, I was down in Canberra with a very good friend and entrepreneur, and he was singing the praises of the value that you've given him in terms of how to improve his sales conversion. And he said, hey, well, you should you have a chat with him. Like, yes, I'd love to. So here we are today, and I'm so glad to be connected.
Beautiful. No, it's great to be here and looking forward to diving deeper.
Well, let's go straight to the heart of this. I know this podcast is called Leading to Profit, and I can't think of anything that's much more suitable to leading to profit. I guess when you're very effective at sales or very effective at conversion, you can definitely profit. But of course, sales is probably a leadership game, isn't it?
It's 100% a leadership game. The reverse selling method, when I first created that, it was almost going to be called leadership selling, in the fact that people don't like to be sold to, but they love to buy. And they love to be led down a process which is really good for them to make an easy decision. And our job as sales, once upon a time, used to be information. Like before internet and the World Wide Web and social media came along, the salesperson had all the information about the product or the service. So the customer would lean on the sales professional for all the product's knowledge. Now, the consumers often know or think they know more than you do about what you do. And they can research your competitors and know what's coming to the market in the future. And so they're a lot more educated. So the role of the salesperson has evolved right now. And, sales is definitely about leadership, leading people down a journey to help them get a great result for what they want to achieve. So yeah, it's definitely about leadership.
And tell us about, all the things that you could have done with your career. I know I read before about, you grew up for your family businesses and you worked in chip shops and, in different retail outlets. And of course, you've landed in this place where sales has become the core focus for you with all the different aspects or disciplines of business. Why sales?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think anyone grows up saying, I want to be a salesperson. Like there's a 1%er out, there's a couple of weirdos out there that would do that, but it's not really a profession. If you're at year 1 in primary school and the teacher said, children, what do you want to be when you grow up? You probably wouldn't get many people saying a salesperson. It's something normally you fall into. In fact, when I co-launched Australia's first National Sales Academy in the early 2000s, I did a whole lot of research, and I think it was like 34% of people in sales have done a bachelor's of education or bachelor's of some sort of formal education. So you're doing a degree for something you don't need a degree for. So you tend to just fall into sales. And for me, it pretty much found that way. I mean, you said it earlier, I grew up with a European family and mum and dad had, the corner deli, typical one thing to do. And then one day dad came home and said, we bought the fish and chip shop next door. And that was almost like Christmas for us as kids. I remember I was 9. My brother was 10 and a half. I had a younger brother who was like 5 or something like that. And it was like a McDonald's for today. It was a fish and chip shop back in the 70s. And mum would run the deli, dad would run the fish and chip shop, and me and my older brother would be there after school. And then the fish and chip shop got really busy, so mum ran across next door to dad. So you had a 9-year-old and a 10-and-a-half-year-old running the deli while the parents were running the fish and chip shop. And then they ran out of chips. And back in those days, you didn't buy frozen chips. You was potatoes. You'd have to wash them, peel them, put them on the blades, pull down the handle, and then the chips would fall out the bottom. So you had my brother labouring in the back doing the chips. I was sitting on 2 milk crates in front of a cash register doing the deli and serving there. Well, you couldn't get more European than that if you think about it. And then I learned a lot through mum and dad around business because they would have certain strategies of how they set up the deli. They learned, I was putting stocks on shelves and stuff like that. And mum goes, that doesn't go there. And I was like, why not? She goes, well, because you want to put that next to that, because when they buy that, they think of that. When they buy that, they think of that. And she had a system for everything in the business. And I remember we'd get to the shop at 5:30 in the morning, and the bread guy will leave the bread crates out for us, and the milk guy will leave the milk at the back. We'd have to bring it, drag it into the shop when we got there. And we always had to drag to the back of the shop. And I said, Dad, why don't we just put the bread crates at the front? Because people want their bread, the milk, and the paper in the morning. And I'm like, he goes, no, son, you want them to walk past everything to get to the necessities, to remind them of things that they want. I remember, if you bought a pie, it was never, do you want a sauce? Do you want 2 sauces or 3? It wasn't an option if you wanted sauces. How many did you want? It was like, what drink are you having with it? Not do you want a drink? Dad was doing meal deals in the 70s. So I kind of grew up in this culture of how to maximize opportunity, how to make it easy for the customer to buy, how to maximize business, how to maximize sales. It was just kind of ingrained, if you like. I don't have this hard luck story where I was broke and destitute and found the golden elixir and now I'm successful. I kind of had a pretty good upbringing and I learnt from mum and dad. So for me, sales was something I fell into. And then I got to uni because that was what you were meant to do in the 80s. Either went to uni or went to TAFE and did a trade. Like that was pretty much all you did back in the day. So I didn't actually get into year 12. I failed. I didn't. So I repeated year 12 and then I got my score back and didn't get in a second time. I didn't have the courage to tell mum and dad I didn't get to uni. So I rang the university and spoke to the dean and booked an appointment, went and saw the dean. 90 minutes later, I walked out and I was in uni. I sold myself into uni. It was the first big sale I ever made, if you like. I wish I had known that earlier. I wouldn't have gone to repeat year 12 twice. But yeah, so I did that. And then I dropped out of uni 2 years later and got a job in a health club doing sales. And I got promoted very quickly from sales to sales manager to managing my first business 4.5 weeks later as a 20-year-old. And then I grew up to an area manager and they wanted to give me a piece of the business. And I just fell into sales, but sales was my pathway to leadership, my pathway to management. And it was the best induction I could ever have because the better you can communicate, the more effective your life will be. And sales for me is just about communication skills.
Yes, so very clearly said. And tell us a little bit more about the reverse selling method, because clearly you got a very interesting story about how you arrived in sales and how particularly you helping people now improve their communication and leadership in the sales.
Yeah, it's been an evolution. When I first started, I realized when I spoke to people, they gave me money. So I had this weird and wacky idea: if I speak to more people, I'll get more money. And I never got the formal training that the company I was in at the time got, because in that very first week, I was very successful. And they'd have one person stay back and everyone else would go to sales training because they couldn't leave the business with no one to take any leads. And I never got their way of selling. And I guess through organically speaking to people, I became more of a questioner than a teller. I didn't have a lot of information about the product knowledge. So when you haven't got product knowledge, you can't talk about the product. You can't, the old adage, when you tell, you sell. And people don't like being sold to. So I very quickly become a really good questioner. And I was asking good questions and I found out people were asking me to buy. I didn't have to close. I didn't have 101 ways to close a sale and overcome an objection. People were saying, great, how do I get started? When do I get started? What do I need to do to get started? And then when I became a sales leader in the company, I found that I was a very poor manager. I was a very poor leader because I would just tell my team, just say this and just do that. But they would go, oh, but Pete, you can get away with saying that. It doesn't feel comfortable to me. I don't know if I could do that. And I didn't get why they couldn't do it. And I realized I didn't have a system that was documented and templated and written out. I would just say what's on my mind. So, and the way that came about was I went on a holiday, visit a friend of mine in Sydney. I was in Perth at the time. And when I was away, the sales figures plummeted. And when I came back, I had a sales meeting and the sales director rang me and goes, Pete, do you mind if we catch up? I said, yeah, I've got a sales meeting at 7:30 with my team. Obviously, the sales figures were bad while I was away. And, Kevin, if I can tell you right now, a piece of me really enjoyed that the sales dropped. That piece starts with E or ego. It meant I was needed. And I had this meeting. He goes, well, I'll pop in and see you. So he came in, saw me, did a small talk. How was your holiday? I went, great. And then he goes, Pete, while you're away, what happened to the sales figures? I went, mate, Sean, I get it. They were low. I've got a sales training in place this morning, got a marketing meeting in place. I'll make it up over the next couple of months. He goes, yeah, I get that, but I need to know why when you're away, sales dropped. I went, Sean, it doesn't matter. It's okay. I'm back. I'll fix it. He goes, no, you don't get it. I can't promote you and I can't approve any more leave. He said, sort your shit out. And he left. I call that seagull management. You fly in, you shit on everyone, you fly out. But it was the biggest snap kick to the head that I needed because it made me realize, see, when I was in the club, Kevin, and if we were behind budget, I would take the lead, I would convert it, but I'd give my team the commissions. Because when I started in sales, it was $20 a sale. There was no base wage, it was commission only. So I would make the sale, but I'd give them the commissions because I knew they didn't have any base wage as salespeople. As a manager, I got a whopping $10,000 base wage. It wasn't a lot back in those days. So I realized that I had to document what was in my head, put it on paper, and systemize away. And that started my career in training other people how to be great. And it made me realize, then I started studying things like behavior, neuroscience, neurolinguistics, human psychology, of how people like to make decisions. Because buying is just helping someone make another decision. And what I realized was you want people to sell themselves on what they want to do, not you convince them what they need to do. And so the reverse selling method was born over decades and decades of realizing that when you ask people questions and you get them to sell themselves on where they're at, what's the effect of that? What's that costing them? If they got a return, what would that be like? What's the effect of that? What would that give them? And make them realize they want what you have. There's no closing involved. It becomes a buying mindset in the customer, not a selling mindset by you. And that's the epitome of the reverse selling method. When you've got a process, which isn't about being pushy, but it's a process about having communication as a skill, you can train anyone to do that. You don't need to be a hard closer. And that's when our businesses grew. We grew to a chain of 15 businesses in half the time it took us to get to 5. Because I had this sales process that was, I could bring someone with great values and great personality and great cultural alignment, give them the reverse selling method, and it would just work. It's a model which now works in over 152 different industries because it's not about the old school stuff. It's about getting people to buy.
Very powerful. A good question for you on that, given that they're not selling and people are actually in a buying conversation, decision making is different. A lot of sales trainers will spend a lot of time teaching about how to handle objections and deal with objections. But I guess from your perspective, if they're more of a buying process, you're probably not going to get the objections because they're selling themselves.
Yeah, 100%. We call it, in the reverse selling method, we've got 9 sales accelerators, and sales accelerator 9 is elimination strategies. My belief is you should be eliminating objections all the way through the sales process. So you've emptied their bullets in their gun. They've got nothing to fire at you at the end. So you don't have to focus on closing and overcoming objections. I mean, I've taught closing and overcoming objections once in the last 4 years in Convert Club to our members in Convert Club, because they often don't get them, but we teach them how to eliminate them rather than how to overcome them. You can overcome them. I mean, their strategy's there. No one's perfect, and you will get some objections at the end because we're not robots. However, you can eliminate 90% of the time to not have to deal with objections if you do it right on the front end. So we predominantly spend more time on that than the back end of heavy. You have to be a certain sales dog to just live and breathe of wanting to close hard, crunch the deal, and overcome objections 24/7. It's so much more fun when you just don't get objections.
Yeah, okay, that's amazing. Hey, well, and one of the objections that I can often hear from people who need to step into sales and step into selling for their business is they're fearful of being pushy, or they're fearful of being come across as salesy. So how does the reverse selling method shift that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sales definitely is two components to sales. First is the mindset. What's the thinking that we have around selling? There's a model I call the consumer insights model I created many, many moons ago. If you think of 4 squares on a page, one in the top left, one in the top right, bottom left. In the top left, the brain, the minute you get any sensory input into the brain, you see your website, you listen to a vlog, you read a blog, you read a social media post, you read the subject heading of an email, of an EDM, whatever it is, any sensory input that you get, the first thing your brain does, it creates thought. You think something. And that thought's either going to be positive or negative, right? You then fire up a neuron to secrete a hormone, and that thought can instantly turn into a feeling. So how you think would dictate how you feel, right? Your thoughts dictate your feelings. Your feelings will then dictate the actions that you take. And the actions will drive your results. Most people play below the line and they go, Pete, what do I need to do or say to get a different result? How do I convince this person to buy or overcome that objection, right? What we strongly recommend is you play above the line, not below the line. What I've uncovered is when you obsess about how can I change the way someone thinks and feels, if I can do that, they would take their own action. That would be to respond to your lead magnet, or to buy what you have, or to book an appointment with you and get the result that you want. So the obsession needs to be about how is what I'm about to write, say, send, the image I'm going to use on Instagram, whatever it is you're communicating, how will that make the customer think and feel? And what action will that take? Is that the action I want them to take? Yes, then press send. If it's not, rewrite it, reword it, pick a different image. So it's like your litmus test that you take it through. So I'll write an email or a social media post, then I'll go, okay, if my audience read this, how will they think and how will they feel? What action will that make them take? I'll read that later. I'll put that in the read later pile. Then that's not the action I want. I'll go back and change what I'm going to write, or choose a different image, or say something different that will create a different thought and feeling. So if you play above the line, the actions take care of themselves.
Very clear, very clear. And so we're focusing on helping them have the right thoughts and the right feelings, and of course, they're going to take the right actions and the right results. And so is a good thing to, what you're doing is you're actually envisioning that before that things get sent, before you actually say it, you're actually trying it on. And now, I guess, given that you know your customers very well, you're going to have a pretty good read on that. But I guess once you go out and test it in the real world, you really then begin to see, do they think and feel that way? Or
yeah, I mean, you have that. When you have that mindset of, I'm here just to help people think and feel a certain way. I'm not here to convince them or pitch them 24/7. So the mindset of being successful at selling is really critical. Like I call it, have a doctor's mindset. What does a doctor do? They diagnose and then they prescribe, right? The biggest mistake we often make in selling is we lead too quickly with our solution because we think that's what people want, right? No one cares what you do. All they care is how what you do makes them feel. So your mindset first should be, I'm here as a doctor. I'm a doctor of finance. I'm a doctor of health. I'm a doctor of wealth. Whatever your industry is, have that doctor's mentality. Like I remember, when I first started, I didn't have a marketing budget. So my leads was the white pages. I literally had 7 suburbs in my catchment area around the gym, and I would run the finger down the page and I'd find a suburb, and all you get is a Mr. and Mrs., initial and surname. And I would cold call them, and I would have a 2% success rate. For every 100 calls, I'd book 2 appointments. Within 6 to 8 months, I had a 72% success rate cold calling from the white pages. Because all I did was I created a process or a script that changed the way people thought and felt on the phone, and then they wanted to come in. I have this doctor's mindset. I think it's your gift that I'm calling you right now. You're a success story that you don't know that exists yet. My thinking's different when I'm on a sales call. So the first step in being successful in selling and getting rid of the fear of selling is knowing that it's the customer's gift that they're speaking to you. You do a great product or a great service, you can help them. So if you feel that you act that way, you act like a doctor, they will treat you differently, right? Then you learn the skill sets of what you need to say accordingly. You need to have a process to follow. If you're trying to wing it or do it intuitively, you could figure it out or just take you a long way and you'll have a lot of trial and error. I've done the trial and error and I don't want anyone else to have to do it again. So we're very good at tailoring the sales process to three things, right? You need to be tailored for your industry because your industry has nuances, and the perception your customer has based on the marketing your industry does will train your customer a certain way. So your sales process must be tailored to your industry, must be tailored to your price point. Different price points can do different sales processes. I mean, a member just recently made 9 sales in 4 days on a price between 8 to 11K just using email or SMS, not having to speak to anyone. But someone else who's selling 100K would need to have a 2 or 3 step sales process. So the dollar value and then the lead source. Your sales process needs to be tailored to your lead source because all leads are not created equal. A lead coming from a Google, a meta ad, a lead page, a landing page, a networking event, a referral, they're all coming in different levels of wanting to buy. So you need a tailored process for your lead source as well. So once you understand the mindset, you can then play with the skill set and you'll master this fear of selling very quickly. You become smart.
Very powerful. And I think mindset first is a very important lesson there. And I did the whole cold calling thing myself. And yeah, it was a slog. Now, you said out of those 2 out of 100 you got in, you closed 72% of the 72% of them enrolled to work with you.
When I first started, I'd make 100 phone calls and book 2 appointments at a 2% conversion rate from lead to appointment. After about 6 months, I got a 72% success rate from lead to appointment. So I'd get 10 names over the phone book. I'd book 7 of them were booking for an appointment.
Wow. It's pretty phenomenal. There wouldn't be many people out there cold calling who would have that level of success. That's pretty phenomenal.
It's, I had no attachment, Kevin, to the outcome. My obsession was every call, and we do this in digital marketing, right? You split test. I would say something, I'd get hung up on. How'd you get my number? Why are you calling me? 4-letter word expletives, etc. And I had no attachment to that. I would just change one thing every call I made. And if it increased my conversion rate from 2% to 4%, I would keep it. And if I changed something else and it went back down to 3%, I would bin it, go back to the old one. And every call I tried one new thing, one new strategy, and it either moved my conversion rate up or it moved my conversion rate down. I had no attachment to outcome. I had attachment to process and to serve the customer. What's the best way to serve them so they didn't feel like they were being cold called or telemarketed? And so the way I rang and I answered the phone and my first line changed, my second line changed. And so it was a massive journey of trial and error until I got to that stage where I found that sweet spot where people just responded to. And then I could scale that accordingly.
It's pretty phenomenal, and that would be life-changing for any business. I guess if you go from having a 2% conversion to a 4%, well, there you go, you just doubled your money. You've gone from 2% to 70+%. It's incredible. And so no wonder your clients in Convert Club or the reverse selling method are getting a lot of value. Tell us a little bit about how you work with your clients then, because like you say, you tailor it to 3 different things. You tailor it to their industry, their price point, and their lead source. How do your clients really get value from how you help them?
The biggest gap most businesses have that stops them from growing and selling, let's talk from a business owner perspective, right? As a business owner at startup stage, what are you doing? You're wearing all the hats, right? You're wearing the marketing hat, the sales hat, the delivery hat, the operational hat, the financial hat. You're kind of wearing all the hats. And slowly you start taking off those hats. You might bring on an administration person first or a VA. You might bring on someone to help you with marketing. You might bring on a salesperson or operational person, depending what industry you're in, what your personal skill set is and what your weakness is. So the biggest thing that pays for everything in business is sales. If you want more marketing, just making cash will pay for more marketing. Sales will pay for operational efficiencies, will pay for your CRM. Or pay for technology, or pay for human resource to hire someone, right? So sales has got to be the epicenter that feeds all other departments in the business. So for me, what's important is most businesses are lacking a systemized sales process that creates consistent sales flow. Inconsistency of sales is one of the biggest bottlenecks for businesses who want to grow. You know the story of, oh, we had a really good week, or we had an average week, or we had a shitty week. We had an average week, we had a shitty week, we had a really great week, we had a really good month, oh, it was an average month. The sales roller coaster. The more you can plateau that out and the gap between your best and your worst becomes less, right, then you can project, you can forecast, and that then impacts your cash flow, which cash flow then impacts your profitability. So the biggest thing that's missing is a systemized sales process. So the first thing we'll do with a company is build out your personalized reverse selling method for you. Document it, template it, so you can get wins quickly. The goal is in the first 5 weeks, everything's paid for itself 10 times over. You've got leads that you know are converting at the price point that you want. So we've got to get quick wins by getting the sales process that's tailored for you. That's the first stage, is building your own reverse selling method, personalized, tailored for you, that works instantly. Once you've got that, then you want to make sure that you're hitting your sales target month after month after month. So we do 5 days a week coaching and support for all our members. They bring leads to the table. I've got this lead. It's stored here. What should I do? And perfect example, on Monday, we had a gentleman who goes, Pete, I'm using your model right now to reconnect with my database. Because he didn't have a flood of leads. He had a trickle of leads. He didn't have a high flow of leads. They had an existing database of 300 or 400 people that over the years had inquired but never bought. So we've got 14 reconnection strategies. The mistake people make is they try to get an old lead and reclose. We need to reconnect first, re-engage buying motivators, and reclose. So you use 2 of the 14 reconnection strategies, generated 13 leads, and 11 bought within 4 days.
Great.
Purely and simply because he brought that to one of the coaching calls. We said, use strategy this, use strategy that. And he showed me the chat sequence. He had someone he hadn't spoken to for hadn't responded to 5 months. You know, the ghosting problem you have? You message someone, they ghost you. You message someone, they ghost you. So he introduced a new reconnection strategy. They responded within, I think it was 14 minutes. And then by the end of the day, they had bought $8,700 product from him. So it's about bringing leads to the table, bring scenarios to the table, teaching you how to charge more, upsell, cross-sell, objections you're getting. How do we role play them, we rehearse them? I got this email from a client. What do I do here? I'll reword it for you, go press send. So it's this, build out your process first and then give you the ongoing support to make sure you hit target month after month. I say it again, it's just a lot of fun helping people win.
Quick question. Are you leaving profits on the table? Discover where hidden profit leaks are draining your business and how to stop them. Download my free report, Stop Leaking Profits, at www.profit.gifts, GIFTS, and start maximizing your profit today. Now, back to the show. Yeah, so good. And I guess there's some great results on the back end of this. You get the conversion right and then more revenue to do what you need in your business. As you were talking, you mentioned that there were maybe 9 things that would accelerate sales. Do we have time to run through some of those and get some insights on that?
Yeah. I'll give you a quick overview, a bird's eye view, if you like. And these 9 sales accelerated, they're based on the premise of the 3 sales drivers that every business needs to geek out over. Without these 3 sales drivers, you won't have profit, you'll have poor cash flow, and you'll have inconsistency of sales. Those 3 elements of business are critical, right? Is you need a good profit, you need good cash flow, you need consistency of sales. So the 3 sales drivers that enable that is where the 9 sales accelerators were born from. So if I start at the 3 sales drivers, the first sales driver I think we need to obsess about is what we call SOS, right? Speed of sale. We want speed to lead and lead to sales. So speed of sale is important. Time kills sales. The longer the sales process goes, the lower the conversion rate. So we need to get hold of them quickly, present to them, get them to buy without being pushy, without being forceful with the customers buying what you have. But you want to shorten that sales cycle. If we look at the opposite of a fast sales cycle, it's a long sales cycle. And long sales cycles equal hard work. Now, I don't mind working hard. I never want any of you to do hard work. Hard work is calling old leads 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. When you're calling old leads, what are you not doing? You're not calling new leads. So you're limited in the income ceiling that you can hit. So the first sales driver is how do we get people to make decisions quicker and faster? The second sales driver is then talking about your average dollar per sale. Often we're making lots of sales, not hitting our target because not charging our true worth. We're not upselling to a high dollar value service that gives a better result that you can charge more for. And we're not cross-selling to secondary or third items to increase that average dollar per sale. So we've got to learn how to charge our true worth to have profitability in our business. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. So your average dollar per sale is critical. I know a lot of people convert really highly and really quickly, but people are buying low dollar value stuff. So you have to have a high volume of sales, which means you need a high volume of leads and leads cost time and cost money. So it just eats into profit. So how can you maximize the dollar value? And then the third sales driver is your conversion rate, right? If you're converting 3 leads out of 10, 30%, but let's say you need 6 sales for the month. Well, if 3 sales come from 10 leads, 6 sales will come from 20 leads. It's just mathematical. So you go, I need 10 more leads to make 3 more sales to get 6 sales for the month. Now, as I said, leads can cost you time and cost you money. So my brain says, why don't you just learn how to convert 6 out of 10 rather than getting more leads? So your conversion rate, if you can convert better the leads that you have, you can then use profit and not back pocket to invest into marketing. Often it's not a marketing problem, it's converting the leads you currently have, which gives you more cash flow to invest back into marketing to get more leads. So you're growing positively without being in debt. I mean, when you've got a low dollar value, the average dollar per sale, it means you've got to do more work. When you've got low conversion rate, it means you need more leads. So to avoid you having to do hard work, more work, and driving more leads, you want to have a shorter sales cycle at a better price point at a high conversion rate. So they're the 3 sales drivers. So Kevin, what I did, I sat down and said, okay, if they're the 3 sales drivers, what are the techniques or tactics that we need to use to increase speed of sale? What are the tactics we need to increase the average dollar per sale and not get price objections? What are the tactics you need to make sure you can convert better and not have to do copious amounts of follow-up? And I created 3 sales accelerators for each of these 3 sales drivers. So I just want to give you a bit of backstory first of how the reverse selling method was born in that capacity. So if I start with speed of sale, the 3 key sales drivers is 1, what increases speed of sale is having the right sales sequence, how customers like to buy, and the number of touch points in your sales process. So you've got to align how customers like to buy with your sales sequence. A lot of the order of what people say and do, you often do the right thing in the wrong time with the wrong order. So the first thing we do, we look at your sales process and realign it collectively. For your industry, the sequence works better like this. For your industry, instead of having 2 touch points, you need 4. Instead of having 5 touch points, you need 3. So we align first, what's the best sales sequence that you have? Secondly, you've been retail shopping before, Kevin, correct?
I sure have.
You walk into a retail shop, what's the first thing a salesperson says to you? Can I help you? And your knee-jerk reflex response is to say what?
No, I'm good, thanks.
I'm just looking, I'm just browsing, I'm a good, thanks, right? Why do you say that? Because you don't want to be pushed in anything. Don't want to be pushed into anything. So we call that buyer's resistance. All your customers have a certain level of buyer's resistance. Obviously, if it's a referral, they may have less buyer's resistance. If it's just Googled 3 businesses and filled out a contact us page on a website, you'll have more high level of buyer's resistance. So every customer has a level of buyer's resistance, just the degree of intensity changes. So step 2, this speed of sale, is when you first meet someone, the biggest mistake people make is try to win people over. What you want to do is lower their resistance first. So you've got to have LBR strategies, lowering buyer's resistance strategies. It's like, picture just sitting in a car, you put the car in park, you put up the handbrake, you put the foot on the brake pedal, so you got maximum resistance, and you try to put the foot on the accelerator. No matter how hard you put the foot on the accelerator, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to rev, it's going to make a lot of noise, it's going to redline, and eventually your engine's going to blow. So we blow a lot of sales because we're too busy trying to win people over first, when the first thing you need to do is lower the resistance. So sales accelerator 2 is you've got to have LBR strategies, right? We have 6 key LBR strategies in Convert Club, which we tailor for your industry. And then step 3 to speed of sale is the art of getting the customer what we call DMR, decision maker ready. You've got to set up a sequence and a cadence, an agenda, if you like, of getting the customer to explain to the customer what's going to happen in your sales process and have them agree to it. If they agree to the steps in the sales process, and in that agreement is when they're going to make a decision, when they're going to get price, when they're going to get their solution. If you include all that and they agree to that process, you've now got them decision maker ready, right? So to increase speed of sale, you just need to make sure you got the right sales sequence for your industry. You got to make sure you got lowering buyer's resistance strategies, and you've got to get them decision maker ready early. You do those 3 things, they will comply and make a decision when you want them to. Should we go on to average dollar per sale and the 3 sales accelerators with that?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because it's very clear so far.
Okay, cool. There's a dynamic I've created a number of years ago. Have you ever been to the beach and have fish and chips to the beach?
I sure have.
And you throw a chip out, what happens?
Oh, the seagull. Seagull's got it before it lands.
Seagulls come, right? And it's cute. The first one's cute. But then what happens after you throw one chip out and you throw two chips out? What do the rest of the seagulls?
You're mobbed.
You get mobbed. And you throw a chip out, and what do the seagulls do over that chip with each other?
Oh, they fight.
They fight over it, right? There's a dynamic that happens in the sales process where there's a perception, we call a paradigm, of who's viewed in what way in the sales process. So if I'm looking at getting a quote to get plantation shutters put on my house, I might get 2 or 3 different quotes, right? So therefore, the customer is the chasee and the business is the chaser. I want your business. The customer knows you want your business. You're almost going to work the quotes off each other, try to get the cheapest price. In other words, the customer is the chief and the salesperson's the CEO. That's the perception a customer has of you. They see you as the salesperson. They know they're the prize. They know you want me. You want my business. So they treat you accordingly. So we create a model called the switch, where we position ourselves as the chip and the customer is the seagull. You want them fighting over you. So the rule is be the chip. It's a way to get people to buy more from you and not be price sensitive. When you want the prize, you'll pay more for a prize. When someone's chasing you, you want to pay less. So we have a technique we call create the switch. So the way to make sure that you don't get price objections or you can upsell, cross-sell or charge more is position yourself as the chip by being the seagull, by creating the switch. The second sales accelerator after the switch technique is knowing how to talk emotionally versus logically. We all know that people buy emotionally and they justify logically, but it still astounds me how 80% of sales processes I see are predominantly logically based. They're feature benefit based, and people don't buy that way anymore. So it's the balance of how do you talk to the emotional cortex of the brain, not the logical cortex of the brain. In Convert Club land, we call that red brain, green brain selling. So what do you do with a red light, Kevin?
Stop.
You stop. What do you do with a stop sign? You stop. And what are you looking for? Cars, motorcyclists, pedestrians, warning signs. You look for reasons not to go. So when you talk to the logical cortex of the brain, we call that the red brain, the logical hemisphere. And what that does, it slows decision-making down. Now, what do you do at a green light? You go. You put the pedal to the metal and you floor it. You have permission to just go, so you do. So the emotional cortex of the brain is what I call your green brain. So you have green brain language, green brain copy, you have green brain imagery, green brain subject headings, green brain ads campaigns, green brain posts. And accordingly, you have the red brain version of all that. So it's knowing when to go red brain, when to go green brain. Now, I was in the room with my business partner when we first created this over 20 odd years ago, and a lot of people are teaching it now in that capacity, but there's a nuance around how and when to go emotional and when to go logical when you do that. And it's the art of green brain versus red brain. So when you lack to the emotional cortex of the brain, people are happy to spend more. So that sales accelerator 5 is when to go emotional, when to go logical. And then sales accelerator 6 is having the artistry and a sequential set of questions to help someone uncover their buying motivators. And 70 to 80% of the whole sales process is getting the customer to do these 3 things. 1, recognize what their buying motivators are. 2, acknowledge the effect it's having on them. And 3, they need to verbalize it to the sales professional. No point you telling me what's wrong. I need to realize it. I need to tell you the effect it's having on me, and I need to tell it to you. And that sales accelerator 6 is uncovering the buying motivators, not at level 1 or 2 at surface level. We're going for levels 3 and 4 and 5. So once you can be positioned as the chip, talk to the emotional cortex of the brain and uncover someone's buying motivator, you can charge more, upsell and cross-sell very easily. And if we look at increasing conversion rates, well, the next logical step is after you've uncovered my buying motivator, people want a solution. So you've got to create what we call a compelling solution framework, a CSF. This is a framework where people feel dumb saying no. It is that compelling. Now, we have an 8-step framework that's simple to apply, but the principle here is it's got to be tailored for me, and it's going to be so compelling, I don't need to shop around. I don't need to bargain for price. So a lot of people have a pitch deck or a standard quote or proposal or estimate they send, and a lot of proposals create more objections. So we fix that by creating a compelling solution framework. Step 8, the number one critical factor that accelerates decision-making in a customer is the degree of certainty you give them. Think about when you've made a quick decision, Kevin. You've just known this is the right thing. It's just you're so certain. So when you present your price, your dollars and cents, you need to have certainty strategies that talk to the emotion and the logic. Normally when you just talk dollars and cents, it's logical. It's the most red brain thing you can do. So we've got a really cool 7-step process of how to create certainty through emotion and logic when you present price. And then step 9, we spoke about elimination strategies. How to eliminate objections so you don't bring them up. When you've got a compelling solution framework, certainty of price, and there's no objections, conversion rates go through the roof. So there are 9 sales accelerators. So our members can come to a coaching call and go, hey, my speed of sales is not that great. I look at it, is it sales accelerator 1, 2, or 3? It's 2. We fix that, boom, sales happen. My conversion rate sucks. Okay, is it sales accelerator 7, 8, 9? We figure it out, it's 8. We role play that, boom. We had a gentleman who was closing at 18%, normally closes at 40%, give or take. He came in and said, Peter, I don't know what's going wrong. We figured out it was sales accelerator 8, role played it for 19 minutes. The next week he texts me, I just closed 5 out of 6 sales. And these were sales around 20 to 25K each. His conversion rate went through the roof because we knew which sales accelerator to fix. So the reverse selling method is not just a script on a page, it's designed to help you lead yourself. If something's not working, you know what to fix, how to lead your team to tell them what to fix, or they can fix it for themselves. Coincidentally, if something's going great, double down on it. So it's really a leadership tool, it's a management tool, and it's the salesperson's tool. So they're the 9 sales accelerators.
Very powerful. And as you're listening, reflecting on which of those areas could you be improving on? And I think perhaps to Peter's point, maybe give yourself a rating on each area. Give yourself a red, amber, green on this. If you think that you're currently not doing a great job, say like the emotional versus logical, give yourself a red. And and if you get too many reds in there, it may mean that, of course, you need some help and some support with this. Now, Peter, if people were interested in getting help and support with their sales and a selling process, clearly you have the ability to help them. Do you help every type of business owner? Do they need to be a certain size? Do they need to have a certain amount of leads? Like who's the ideal client that you really would love to help?
Predominantly, the people that come to us and hunt us down are service-based business owners. We have probably 10 or 15% of our members are product-based businesses, predominantly service-based. But when you've got a skill, when you need to communicate, have a conversation, have a sale, so for example, e-commerce businesses, I know how to help e-commerce businesses. I was, helping people like Jane Liu at Showpo, the early stage of her business, and a lot of really good e-commerce businesses, but that's not our sweet spot. So if you're an e-commerce business, let me know. I'll introduce you to a great e-commerce coach for you. If you're selling high volume products at low price, I know someone that can help you do that better. But when it comes to service-based businesses, that's predominantly who we attract. You've got some sort of lead flow, whether it's a trickle of leads or a database of old leads, a steady flow of leads or a flood of leads. If you've got a trickle of leads, sale is more important because every lead is worth more to you because you haven't got a lot of them. You want to convert as many as you can early. If you've got a flow of leads, you want to create a really good sales process so you can get out of doing sales and hire a sales team. And when you've got a flood of leads, you want to make sure you're converting them to maximize your ROI. So no matter if you've got a trickle, a flow, or a flood, we can help you in that capacity. Normally high ticket, if you're in, $1,000 or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, if it's, under $1,000, we can definitely help you. But predominantly those are easier sales to make. So it's some more challenging, critical sales that you really want to not rely on you as a business owner to do it, but you want to build a process which you can do very well, but you can give it to a team member to do so they hit the ground running from day one.
Amazing. Super, super helpful. And wherever you're listening, click into the show notes. Peter's very kindly gifted the 9 sales accelerators. So all the ones he just spoken through there, there's actually a cheat sheet that you can get access to. So wherever you're listening to, click in the show notes and that will be there. And if they wanted to get in contact with you after that, I'm presuming once they have the cheat sheet, your phone number, contact details are on there, or is the best place for them to come visit you?
Just email me. I mean, I'm really good with my email, and I've got a team that help manage that for me as well. So I'd love to get back to you personally. So you can just email me at sellmore@Petar Lakovich, Petar, it's spelled a bit different, and LACKOVIC.com.au. Just send me an email. I go through them each day, and the team will put me in a file for me, and I love to personally respond back with any questions about the reverse selling method checklist, or questions about what you were doing or how you were doing it or scenario you've got. Yeah, pop me an email. I'd love to chat. Just sellmore@PetarLakovich.com.au. That'll be beautiful. Whether you're a six-figure business wanting to get to 7 or 7 wanting to get 8 or beyond. Love working in those size businesses.
Amazing. And very on-brand email address there. I think that's so great. And so we have one final question for you before we wrap up today. We say that the quality of the questions you ask yourself impact the quality of the life that you lead. With that being true, what's one question you've asked that's had the biggest positive impact on your life or the life of the clients that you serve?
That's a really good question. I recently did back, you go back and connect the dots to figure out how you got to where you are today. Yeah. And it's really interesting because you can never connect the dots going forward, but it's easy to connect the dots going back. And I think back and I go, what was my thinking at the time that led to my greatest growth? And what was my thinking at the time that led to my greatest stagnation or lack of growth? And I figured out there's probably 2 or 3 questions which I subconsciously asked myself. And one was, will this stretch me? When I was in Perth and, I was the only duckling in my family that left, and I wanted to be a small fish in a big pond. I was quite successful here in Perth with a chain of businesses running, the role I had in the company and what I was doing financially, and I wanted to be a small fish in a big pond. So I packed up, left, and slept on a couch at my mate's place. And because I had a property that all my money was going into, so I was very cash asset rich, cash poor. So I said, will this stretch me? And it massively stretched me big time to sleep on actually a staff member who I hired, slept on his couch in Melbourne. And then I cold called and got a job over the phone from Perth in Melbourne, consulting 2 health clubs. And that stretched me. And then I met a gentleman who became my business partner and said, do you want to come to Sydney, work with me, build this sales coaching company? And I went, sure. That stretched me. And then I had a manager of a health club 3 years later. He left and worked for a finance company. He rang me and said, Pete, I need to do coaching for the fitness industry. I'm now in mortgage broking and lending. Do you do sales training for that? I went, yeah, sure. I didn't, but I changed my sales process from fitness training to corporate training, and that stretched me a lot. But that then opened up a door, and now I've worked with over 152 different industries, some of the biggest clients in the world and some of the best entrepreneurs in the world. But that stretched me. Then I left that company and became CEO of the Entourage. We had 3.5 staff, 6-figure small business, and we grew that to 90 people, multiple 8-figure business in 3.5 years. Did that stretch me? Absolutely. So I think the question I probably share would be, will this stretch me? Because the more you stretch yourself and put yourself in opportunity, the great opportunity for growth. And so I'd say that's probably one of the biggest questions is, will this really, really stretch me?
Such a great question to end the show on, because what a great reflection. Whatever you're looking at doing next, whatever your next opportunity or thing in front of you is, will it stretch you? And if it's not going to stretch you, I guess you probably want to find something that's going to give you a little bit more growth, a little bit more opportunity to do that. And I guess as we recap on the conversation today, then definitely click in the show notes to grab these 9 accelerators. And so many key messages in here. You shared so much in there. I got too many things to summarize. I'm just overwhelmed with which ones to pick. Actually, you said something really, really smart in there as well, which I actually quite liked. Was use your profit, not your back pocket. I hadn't heard that one before. That's quite a good one. You want to keep growing in that way. And I think coming back to this core model about what you help people think is how you help them feel, which will impact the actions they take and then the results that they get. So if we can be focused on our mindset to help people think things differently, feel things differently, then of course you get different action, different results. And I think that kind of hangs together a lot of the model that you have here. I would highly recommend that if you just listen to this, go back and listen to it again. I think Peter's wisdom and experience is so much in here. There's probably a few things that you didn't catch. I think a second and third listen will allow you to grab some of the mastery that you shared today. So Peter, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you shared. Do you have any final messages you'd like to share before we log off today?
Oh, my pleasure. I just think, leading, you're the leader of your own destiny. You're the leader of your own future. You are the leader behind everything. And just grasp hold of the world as a leader. Think of everything as a leadership. And what's the next thing that you need that's the bottleneck for you? Find that person, find that community, whatever it is that's going to lead you to the next stage. Be very clear on it. If it's operations, learn operations. If finance, learn off finance. If it's sales, learn sales. If it's marketing, what's your biggest bottleneck? Lead yourself through that journey, and then your next door will open automatically.
Amazing. Peter, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Kevin.
thank you for tuning in to Leading to Profit. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It helps us to reach more leaders like you who are committed to maximizing their positive impact and profitability. Until next time, this is Kevin Lees, and remember, you stop leaking profit when you're engaged in leading to profit.